Good evening, everyone. I was going to be doing a buyer's guide to named enterprises that don't have letters in them, but I accidentally went into too much detail on the first ship I was covering and made a review instead. Okay, so let's start. This is essentially a review of the Enterprise Refit. So with this one, you get to first off to differentiate it from the other Constitution class enterprises without letters in their name. This one is interesting because although it shares a model with the Enterprise A, it shares a class name with the Tiny Prizes, being a Constitution class. It is not considered a Constitution Refit class, and it is not considered a Constitution Calvin class. It is considered a Constitution class, which means it works with the small variety of Constitution class only upgrades you can find, even though this specific expansion doesn't come with Constitution class only upgrades. Constitution class only upgrades, I think, can be found on. They can be found in the Intrepid expansion, and I think the animated pack, as well as the possibly the no, not the ISS Enterprise. But no, when I say Constitution class only, there are some that I'm referring to which aren't only Constitution class. They just get buffs on Constitution classes. An example of a Constitution class only would be Astrogator. Anyway, let's see. With this one, I'm not gonna actually read out the whole abilities for the cards because this was supposed to be for a shorter video. It didn't turn out that way. Let's break it down. The model is what is out of all the Constitution class models. This model and the one that you can get with the A are the best. I like this one a lot, especially because of its paint job. If you get the repaint version, it's silver. It's very beautiful looking. However, one of the engines was placed either a lot lower or a lot higher than the other one, and it was so frustrating I kind of snapped it back into place. It didn't break off, but it's a little loose, but at least it looks nice now. So you do have to worry about the engines on these sometimes being misaligned. Let's see. So with this one, you get an extra shield, which is interesting for Constitution classes. So because it has an extra shield, I should add, it doesn't get the point reduction that the Constitution classes have. Most of the Constitution classes now only cost, I think it's 16 points for generic. This one still costs 22 because of the fact that it has a different stat bar. It has 4 shields as opposed to 3. Now, let's see. And that's the name. So the generic has 3 shields as opposed to 2. In terms of offensive abilities in this pack, we've got quite a few. I would say that the majority of this pack is actually focused offensively. So if you're looking for an offensive ship, this is one you might want to get. So starting with the named ability itself is offensive, very offensive, in fact, because of the fact that it reduces your own shields. You disable your own shields to get an extra dice. Matt Decker, who's the captain he's in this pack, and he's from the motion picture. He is a similar ability, and he lets you destroy a shield for a crit. And I should note that it's an add a crit result to your roll, so that means you actually add a dice to your roll after you before you roll. You add this dice on the side, and you have it faced up on the crit. Now it kind of seems a bit redundant having an action disable 2 for +1 dice, and then an action get this special auto crit. However, considering that Will Decker's ability is really only useful once the enemy shields are down, it kind of makes sense. It's like you use the ship's named ability to pummel away at your enemy while they have shields. Then when they don't have shields anymore, you start chipping away at your own in order to start blowing apart their hull. It also comes with this really cool generic captain. I really like the generic captains. I'm kind of sad that they removed them from the game. Anyway, Keeping on the path of offensive cards, we've got James T. Kirk. He's also an admiral. He's a debuff card. He screws with enemy crews, and in my opinion, he makes so many disable enemy crew upgrades like obsolete because of the fact that he has it's just an action and you do it. You don't have to disable him. You don't have to do some crazy thing. The shields don't have to be down. It just works. The only difference is it's range 1 as opposed to range 1 to 2 like most of them are. He has his own little elite talent here, which is self-destruct, which is reminiscent of the time he blew up the Enterprise. I actually like the self-destruct abilities in this game, although this one is one of the ones with a timer, I think. Is this the one? Yeah, this is the one where everyone knows your ship's gonna blow up. I don't. Those aren't as good as the like. It just blows up this round. Anyway, we've also got Mr. Spock, who has 2 offensive abilities. One is more utilitary, which is the scan, because there's a lot of Federation cards which pair up with scan. He has target lock and scan, so he's good for offense. And he comes with Needs of the Many, which is elite talent, which is reminiscent of the time he died. Interesting thing about Spock, essentially they took Picard, which was arguably one of the best captains in the game, stuck him in a transporter, split him in half, and you got Mr. Spock here and Gul Dukat, who has the other half of Picard's abilities. Alright, so moving on, we've got Chekhov. He is similar to Worf from the starter set in that he is sort of a special kind of target lock. So you disable him and you can reroll your blanks. But you got to keep them so you don't get quality with those blanks, unfortunately. But it is good if you're shooting at something that's cloaked, or if you're attacking a ship and you've spent your target lock already. Just let's say fire this next card, Photon Torpedoes, which in my opinion are one of the worst photon torpedoes that the Federation has, which is probably good that they paired it with Chekhov. So these are more the rare photon torpedoes because it's a 4-point instead of a 3-point or 5-point. So it rolls the same amount of dice as a 5-point, which is 5 dice, but you don't get any quality with this. So the advantage with this one, you might be asking, well, why would I use it? Well, the Constitution class Enterprises fire 3 dice normally. So this lets you fire 5. You could throw this on a Miranda class and boost a ship that fires, or a different. Basically, you can throw this on a smaller ship and boost it up to 5. So like we're talking shuttles, we're talking. Well, it have to be like a Delta Flyer class shuttle because it's a 4-point. But you could throw this on like a shuttle. You could throw this on, I think, a Miranda class. The final offensive card in this game pack here is Uhura. She boosts your captain skill by 2. I consider that an offensive ability if it's Oh, actually, I didn't realize this. It's an activation phase. It's not an action. It's at the start of the activation phase, which means you could also use this for movement. So it's not 100% offensive, because you could use this to try and move after someone if you're trying to figure out where they're going, and you have, let's say, another card which lets you change your direction. But I'd say mainly she's for offense, because you got yourself. This is the thing I like, right? You can kind of see where the designers were thinking. They've established that Kirk is a skill 8 in the game, but Picard is anywhere between skill 9 and skill 8. So the Kirk fans who are like, Kirk is best captain, they give you a her here so your Kirk can finally shoot before Picard. Alright, now let's move on to the defensive upgrades. Here we've got Savick. Interesting choice. I don't really remember what she did in the movies. So this pack again is more of a movie pack than an original series pack. But it does have a lot of the cards from the original series. Like some of the same characters. So I would say it's still a good pickup if you like the original series. Savick here, she lets you take your more offensive abilities even when you feel like you're in danger, so you can perform your scan or your battle station and not have to worry about dedicating your entire action to a defense roll, because she lets you change those to an evade. Finally, we have Sulu here. I classify him as defensive on this ship because sensor echoes don't really help you get into arc if you have a 180 arc, because moving sideways really isn't gonna nudge your ship in or out. It can a little bit. This, I would say, is more so on the ship to get out of arc. Montgomery Scott, his defensive ability is if you discard him, you can immediately repair 2 to your hull. I don't really like discards, but if you're in quick battles where you only have like 2 or 3 rounds, or 3 to 4 rounds, you might want to use him because, hey, you'll get your extra shields. Your extra hull. It'll save. I say he's actually pretty good in this, like with this ship, because if you're using Matt Decker, and you're using, I always say Matt Decker. Is that really his name? Wheel Decker. If you're using Wheel Decker and the named Enterprise, you're not going to have the shields to protect you. So you'll probably have to actually use Spock to protect you. The other side of this is your action economy ability, which is you can disable him to get rid of an Ox token that's going to be put by your ship. And that, if you combine it with Sulu, actually makes this ship quite maneuverable, because you can reverse it continuously. With, if you use your action on Scotty, like to re-enable Scotty, you can just keep reversing, or you can keep pulling those 3 3/4 turns. And Sulu can help you bounce around. Like, you're going to take this big ship that people don't associate as being maneuverable, and you're going to be moving around. So that's pretty good. Next up, we have McCoy. McCoy is one of those really good cards that help mitigate the disables, and a lot of these cards are disables, I should add. So if you're running Spock, McCoy, this is actually a little build that you can run. You have Captain Spock, you have McCoy, you have Chekhov, you have Lojar. Lojar comes from the Excelsior, which you could also pick up to be thematic with this ship. Then you could theoretically fire your 5 dice attack 4SP torpedoes that come with this every turn, and get some rerolls from the Chekhov, because you fire the torpedo, then you disable Lojar to keep the torpedo armed, then you disable Chekhov to get your reroll, and then as your action, you use McCoy to re-enable Chekhov and Lojar, and you get a free action target lock from Spock, so you can fire your torpedoes. So that's actually pretty good. Downside is if your enemy's cloaked, you're not going to be able to use the torpedoes, but I think I might actually run that build sometime, just for fun. Be a nice little thematic build. It's honestly probably too expensive to be worth it, but it'll look cool. You'll have all these original series cast guys and original movie cast guys sitting on the ship, firing the torpedoes at your enemy. Maybe go after, what's his name, Khan. Mind you, it's hard to build a Reliant that's expensive. Let's get real, unless you're using, like, Flagship or something. I know you guys probably know how to do it, but if you're new, you probably will have a hard time making that ship expensive. Finally, we've got Aliyah here. I don't think I've ever used Aliyah, I'll be honest. But hey, if you're a great pilot, use Sulu so you can really stretch your wings and fly. If you're a bad pilot, use Aliyah so you don't get so hurt from crashing into asteroids. If your table is small or you play with a lot of asteroids and stuff, then yeah, Aliyah's probably one you might want to use. She's a bit expensive though, 4 points. So all in all, you got, I think, 2.5 defensive cards, 2.5 cards dedicated to action economy, And then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards, that's including the name ship, that are offensive. Technically 8 if you count the self-destruct. And you could say that the Needs of the Many also counts as a defensive card. So that's actually brings it to 3.5 defensive cards. So this is a very offensive themed pack. So if you are starting out and you want yourself an original series Enterprise and you want a really good model, I would suggest this one. But keep in mind the engine might be tilted. I bought this one. Let me just say that. I did not buy the Tiny Prize, the original series Enterprise, for a long time. I bought this one instead. Okay, so it's a 4 out of 7. It's a good pack. I'd play it. I don't use all the cards in it, though. So that's why I don't say it's a great pack. It is technically a competitive pack, but only really because it comes with Captain Spock and Sulu. Those are the 2 real competitive cards. The other ones really aren't. Except McCoy. You could technically run McCoy competitively. And that's if you don't have Phlox. If you have Phlox, I would say run Phlox instead. But, hey, McCoy's still pretty dang good. There was some really fun combos I ran off of McCoy. I know he's not as good as Phlox, because Phlox does everyone. But let's face it, it's kind of hard to find an NX-01. And, hey, it'll scratch the itch for your toss. So if you are a Federation player or you're just starting out and you need a toss ship, this is one of the ones you can pick up.